The Samsung Galaxy S3 was one of the biggest phones of 2012, whilst the Samsung Ativ S is the company's first phone to run Windows Phone 8. So how does it compare to the Android flagship? Let's find out. Construction on both devices is predominantly plastic, with a removable hyperglazed glossy back on the Galaxy S3 and a faux metal finish backing on the Ativ S, which gives it a more business-like feel. Both handsets feature 4.8-inch screens with a hardware home button surrounded by two capacitive keys either side. The silver band around the edge plays host to a volume rocker on one side, whilst the lock key sits on the opposing side. Both devices offer up a centrally mounted 8-megapixel camera with LED flash, along with front-facing 1.9-megapixel cameras. The Ativ S does also feature a dual-detent hardware shutter key, something we've been wanting to see in the Galaxy S family for years. Under the back covers, there's room for a micro SIM, a 2100 mAh removable battery on the S3, and a 2300 mAh removable battery on the Ativ S, both with NFC, as well as a slot for micro SD card to expand the memory. The Ativ S has a 16GB internal memory expanded by up to 32GB of additional storage, whilst the S3 offers 16GB or 32GB internally and wins out with support for up to 64GB cards. Both phones employ the same impressive 4.8-inch Super AMOLED screen, which features a 720p HD resolution. AMOLEDs offer excellent blacks and vivid colours, but have a tendency to degrade faster over time than competing LCD panels. In this comparison, the older S3 is dimmer than the Ativ S. Nonetheless, both screens are wonderfully clear and support top-notch viewing angles to boot. The silicon powering the Ativ S is a 1.5GHz Qualcomm Snapdragon S4 dual-core chip with a gig of RAM, whilst the Galaxy S3 features Samsung's own 1.4GHz Exynos 4 quad-core chip, again with a gig of RAM. In general use, both phones feel tightly wound. On the Galaxy S3, navigation is fluid, quick launching apps from the lock screen takes no more than a second or two, shutter lag is non-existent, and multitasking or using the S3's more intensive functions like pop-out video have barely any effect on the device's usability. Despite the lack of a quad-core processor, the Ativ S also puts on a great show. UI lag is rarely an issue, and thanks to that hardware shutter key, the camera can be launched from sleep in just over a second. Multitasking is limited to 7 apps, and you will occasionally find yourself waiting for larger apps to open, but it doesn't detract from the general smoothness of the Ativ S's operation. The Samsung Galaxy S3's battery life is solid, with daily charging recommended but not essential. However, the Ativ S's larger battery and the power efficiency of Windows Phone 8 should see you well over a day before requiring a recharge. The Samsung Galaxy S3 offers Android Jelly Bean with TouchWiz Nature UX on top. There's an amazing depth to the level of customization available, with widgets, home screens, and a wealth of apps supplied by Samsung out the box. For some, the extensive list of options and settings may be a little overwhelming, but it does result in a very diverse experience that can cater to a multitude of user types. Windows Phone 8 feels sparse in comparison. All the main functions and features you'd expect are there, but beyond that, Windows Phone simply doesn't offer the same level of personalization you get on the Galaxy S3. The App Store too is underdeveloped, although Samsung has included a number of their own Windows Phone apps which add a lot of extra functionality, such as Chat On and Music Hub. For the most part, we saw balanced performance with almost identical colour reproduction, image stability and contrast from both cameras, with a somewhat overly sharpened look on some images, but in more extreme conditions the gap widened a little. When snapping macro photos, the Ativ S focuses more quickly and just has the edge in low light performance. Both phones offer Full HD, that's 1080p recording at 30 frames per second, producing equally pleasing results, although with a tendency to refocus when the camera is moving, but this is a minor annoyance. The gap between the Samsung Galaxy S3 and Samsung Ativ S is smaller than you might think. The OS is the most obvious difference. Windows Phone 8 is a wonderfully slick alternative to Android, but can't compete on flexibility. Versatility remains the S3's strength, thanks to both the out-the-box experience and the breadth of content available on the Google Play Store, a factor that, although still capable, means the Ativ S, like all Windows Phone's handsets, is still playing catch-up.